World Economic Forum here in Jakarta. With me is Sonita Lontoh of the Indonesian diaspora and also of Trilliant in Silicon Valley, their head of global marketing and corporate strategy. Sonita, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
What is the Internet of Things?
Great question. Actually, there are many definitions, but in its simplest term, the Internet of Things is really the applications of smart sensors, IT and networking technologies to connect billions of devices around the world and to create new applications and new business models. That's really what it is. But when we talk about Internet of Things, I don't think we should talk about the technology itself, but we should talk about the benefits that technology would deliver, which basically to create and enable a safer, cleaner, more sustainable, and more efficient way of living.
So, does this range from some network to disinfect your hands at the hospital? Or is this strictly to do with things like smart energy? Or is it just any object?
Sure, that is a great question too. Theoretically, it's really any object, So the analogy that I always, refer to is if you think about the internet is happened because of the connectivity of all computing devices around the world. Then it created the internet because they're connected, right? So once the internet was created, because all these computing devices was connected, then we had applications like email for our communications, e-commerce, Amazon, eBay, and all that in the US, and also social media, Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so forth. So use that same analogy, but instead of connecting computing devices, you're connecting devices to make them smart so they can connect to each other, create data, and things like that. So in theory, it can be anything. However, in reality, the first application that people have been doing around the world today is for energy infrastructure. So they're putting these smart sensors and IT and communications technology across our whole energy infrastructure to make them smart and enable two-way communications. But then the result of that is that we will have a more balanced system between our energy supply and our energy demand, creating a more efficient system, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, enabling the integration of renewables and solar panels, electric vehicles, and things like that. So when you really think about it, you can use the analogy of the internet, but this is like creating an energy internet in the case of the application in the energy industry, but then you can also apply it to other things. You can apply it to city infrastructure to create smart cities, so you can make, let's say, traffic lights smarter, or you can make transportation smarter so that it eases congestions and things like that. But in its simplest term, it's really just the application of these smart sensors, information and communication technology to connect devices to create new applications and capabilities.
So where can we see it today? In ship-to-shore communications?
I would say ship-to-shore, actually, I think for the longest time they have done that, but I think in that particular industry would be in the logistics, So we would put smart sensors on our manufacturing lines, so that it becomes more efficient, so that we know when does that particular material is going to come to the factory, or when would that particular material be shipped from China or things like that. So in the application of logistics, what I would call logistics, is also still helping for the logistics industry to be more efficient and just having the right data to know exactly where, when, and how much in terms of quantity a certain material or item is at.
And so for an average consumer, something like being able to track their package to the second.
Exactly, to the second.
Do you think that would pave the way for driverless cars?
Oh, totally, because actually in the US, Google is already starting to do that. So actually the ecosystem is called connected cars. But so connected cars is basically putting sensors in cars so that they become more safer. So let's say if your car, even driverless car, and then they're about to bump into someone or into something, they have sensors to know that hey, they're supposed to stop. So those are the kinds of applications. Of course, it's not mainstream yet, but in the California you see Google cars on the street already. It's not mainstream, but you see them.
Well, without the need for safety concerns in the way they have now, does that mean there could be much more efficient use of city streets?
Oh, definitely. And you know what? Actually, one thing that I want to share with you about the applications of IoT to the next level that I think people don't really think about, but it is really the IT. Have you guys ever heard of Uber? So Uber is this new kind of car system. If you really think about it, Uber is using connected kind of like technology, in this case is our mobile phones actually, to really know the inventory of available cars and matching it with people who need cars at that exact same time, and also automate payments. So Uber is actually the perfect example of how a company has been able to take this IoT technology and actually really apply it into this new business model that is disrupting, the cab industry, and then really optimally matching available cars and drivers who need them.
Can we look at more examples of this? Maybe in the food industry, Pizza Hut had that guess what you're going to eat by seeing what items your eyes go to on a menu. Is that the same thing?
Sure. I mean, if you put sensors in the right places, then maybe Pizza Hut sometimes may know what you like without you kind of knowing them. Of course, based on historical data, but also based on your particular kind of like what's going on with your, I don't know, eyes, or like what are you doing at that particular time.
Well, where can Indonesia see this happen soonest?
That is a very good question. I think, and to be honest, I haven't really been in conversation with the right people, but I would say in Indonesia, it seems, especially with the traffic in Jakarta, maybe there could be some kind of applications of IoT into the transportation industry to make it more efficient and less congested.
Even Uber has struggled with that.
In Jakarta?
Yes.
But it's more of a regulations-wise, right? It's not because they cannot do it, but because the regulation doesn't allow them to do it.
No, true. But there's the traffic occasionally.
Yes.
No one can quite escape it. Mm-hmm. We're just going to go to break very quickly, and we'll be back right in a minute with Sonita Lontoh